Hey guys! So in this part of my kitchen rejuvenation video series, I'm going to be lining shelves in kind of complicated area in the corner of my kitchen, and I'll show you this when we get into it. I have two corner cabinets that go in the corners of the kitchen, obviously, and corner cabinets can be tricky because especially these are particularly deep, and if they were just regular, shelves, yes, I'd probably be able to fit more things in them, but it would be really hard to get to the things in the back. So the people who built this kitchen put in, I don't really know what to call them. They remind me of Lazy Susans, but they're like Lazy Susan shelves. So there's two Lazy Susan shelves in my two corner cabinets. And I guess the people who lived here previously used them as pantry storage. I use them for pans and mesh colanders and pots and Dutch ovens and things of that nature. And I guess they had some spillage of pantry items and they just never cleaned them up, and it's really hard to get the stuff off, but I'm gonna, when we moved in, I'm gonna work on that when I show you, when I start filming over there. So hopefully that'll come off. But I do want to line the shelves, A, to cover any leftover gunk that I cannot lift off the shelves. I'm a little, I'm not really optimistic about it all coming off. And B, just to have them lined so that I can wipe them easily and replace the liners if I need to. Now, because it's in such a tricky spot, I can't just like measure it out. They're round. Well, they're not even perfectly round. They're like half circles with little holes in the middle. So it'd be really hard to measure it out really well. So I'm going to use Kraft paper. Like brown Kraft paper to make my pattern. That's the word. And then I have shelf liner, just plain white shelf liner that I'll show you, that I will use the pattern to cut out. So I'm going to get started and take you with me. So here we go. Hey guys, so I'm down here on the kitchen floor. Luckily it's pretty clean. I'm standing in front of my corner cabinet I was talking about in a previous video, where, it's the corner of our kitchen. We have two. The rest is open. And instead of having just like two shelves here, in which case stuff would have to be shoved behind other things, the designer of the kitchen, I don't know who it wasn't us, but they put in these, they're sort of like, remind me of like Lazy Susan shelves. Two of them, which I actually really like. Yes, you sacrifice some space, but it's just so convenient, and really I don't need more space than this because they're rather deep. Now when we moved in, the shelves had some like kind of yellow sticky stuff on them that kind of gross. So as a temporary fix, I just threw some press and seal on top of it, and now that was 3 years ago and I still haven't lined them, and that was my plan all along. So today I've decided I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to line them, but before I do that, of course I don't know what I did with it. Sorry, there's this like really bright light because otherwise you couldn't see inside my the cabinet, so I put this like really bright light in front of me. Anyway, before I line them, I did really try to clean them before, but I hadn't been introduced to the wonders of Goo Gone. Looks like this, or Goo Gone, whatever it's called. So I'm going to try that today, see if that gets the gunk off. If not, I'll work around it. But I'm going to line them, and it's a little difficult to line them because they're round, so I can't just measure and cut. So what I did is I brought down some Kraft paper, like a roll of brown Kraft paper, and I'm going to just cut up some big pieces and kind of like push it into the ledge and see if that will work. Hopefully it will, and then kind of trace with a pencil around and make a, a mold, like a pattern. There's the word. I'm going to make a pattern. And then I bought this easy liner, smooth top easy liner, not adhesive, from the Container Store for $6 a roll. You get 20 inches by 6 feet, so it's like 10 square feet total. And this is what I'm going to use, and I have two of these cabinets and two of these round things, but really I only have to successfully measure one of them because they're all the same size. So if I successfully measure one, then I can just copy it 4 times. And I think I'll probably do it in half because this won't cover that whole thing. So I'm going to get started and I'll let you know how it goes and show you my progress. So I put the Goo Gone on the shelves and I'm letting it sit for a minute, and while I do that, I'm going to vacuum the bottom of the shelf, and I already did the shelves before I put the Goo Gone on, using my crevice tool. No, I'm kidding, on my vacuum. So here we go. So I'm letting the Goo Gone sit so it can kind of like work on the sticky stuff that's been there for God knows how long. Okay, so the Goo Gone actually worked pretty well. It didn't get everything off because, like I said, it was really, really old stains. I guess the people who lived here before us used these corner cabinets as like a cupboard of sorts and weren't very neat. But whatever, no judgment. So I cleaned with the Goo Gone, and then I wiped up the residue with my Mrs. Meyers Clean Day surface wipes in the scent Lemon Verbena, and then just to make sure everything was nice and clean, I used the Mrs. Meyers Clean Day Countertop spray, also in Lemon Verbena. So now I'm going to take my roll of Kraft paper, and I'm just going to kind of like see how much is halfway and then cut that piece off. Get what I mean? I think I should cut here. Really, if I can get one side perfect, then just use that pattern. So I'm going to make half the shelf be the pattern, and I can just flip the pattern over and do the other half of the shelf and use that for all of the shelves. So here we go. I'm not sure if I'm going to include this in the video or not, but I'm going to try to. You're not going to be able to see it because I'm going to be standing in front of it, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Okay, I've laid my piece of Kraft paper in the shelf. I'm sorry, it's not really hard to see. Now I'm going to kind of work it into the shelf so that, I need my pencil, so that I can, get the best pattern possible. I don't like wrapping a present. And, this doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to cover it to keep my pots and pans safe and also to prevent any future ickiness. So I don't know if you can see, there's my pattern. There's still a little oil left on the Goo Gone. I'll have to clean that out. I traced with pencil. I'm going to cut this out kind of not close to the line and see how it fits, and then I'll just cut it closer and closer until I get it right. These are really big scissors. Okay. So there, I've cut it out, and you see I've left about a ½ inch to the line, just in case. So now I can fit it in much easier. Oh, I apologize. Sorry. Very snug, but it at least will be cover the majority of the shelf. Because this, unless I took this out, like physically apart, I don't see how I could make a truly accurate pattern. Take a little bit off the top. This is good. This is really good. This is better than I thought it would be. One more trim, and then I'm going to cut a piece of liner as sort of like my test liner, but if it works, it works. All right, I'm gonna go do that now. Okay, so I'm back with my first piece, and I'm really hoping it works. It does fit. I'm just going to trim a little bit. Okay, so I trimmed it in that one little spot. And now it fits beautifully. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's good enough for me, and it serves its purpose. Now I'm just going to flip it over to the other side. To make sure that it will fit on the other side, and it will. Of course, it's upside down right now, so I'm not going to leave it like that. But I am going to cut out all of the patterns and then put everything back and show you the final product. I'm going to show you guys how I used my pattern to cut out the shelf liner. So rolled out my little shelf liner all the way. It covers the cutting board, the self-healing mat completely. And then this was my pattern that you saw me cut out from the Kraft paper. And I just situated it, trying to maximize, you know, use as little of the shelf liner material as possible. Like that. And then I basically held it down in different, didn't let it move. Luckily this is very, you know, it's got a lot of texture to it, so it's not slippery. And I used a fine tip Sharpie to trace around it. And then you could see I had to kind of fix one end once I got my first piece in there, and I just trimmed it. So now I'm going to use my first piece as my pattern. It's going to be hard for you to see because it's white on white, but I'm going to trace it and then you'll be able to see it. I'm not going to trace from the old pattern because it's not exactly correct like this piece is. So start at the top with my fine tip Sharpie. Okay, so now I've drawn my pattern on. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's there. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to very carefully cut just inside the black line. Now this shelf liner paper, whatever you call it, is much thicker than that Williams-Sonoma stuff I used on my kitchen drawers, which I did a different video on, all on the same day. So it doesn't come off quite as cleanly once I cut it, but it's clean enough that I can kind of just tear it apart. It creates sort of a perforated edge, like, you know, you would have on a checkbook or something, which makes it easy to get the piece out. Now I'm going to try to stay as close as possible to the black line without hurting myself or going over it. And like I said, this is not perfect, but to be honest, I didn't expect it would come out perfect, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised that it's coming out as good as it's coming out, so not gonna complain. So just use extreme caution when using really sharp stuff like this. I'm such a big klutz that it's kind of surprising I haven't cut into my thumb yet, but hopefully that won't happen. Okay, so now I've cut the whole thing out, kind of, and I'll show you what I mean. It just kind of tears away. Like you created a nice perforated line, and it's tearing out. Of course, now that I say it, it's not tearing it. Oh, there it goes. just like that. And there's another piece. Now that one was the same orientation as this one, so in order for me to make the flip side, I'm going to have to flip it over to make the pattern. But I'll show you guys the finished result next. Okay guys, so here's the finished product. It's a little bit hard to see, and I know this light's like kind of creepy weird, but the white part is the shelf liner. And now the drawer is all clean on the front, no more sticky stuff. And you can see, rotates around really nice. All my Le Creuset stuff, Dutch ovens, cast iron thing. And then on the top, I have all my salad spinners, vegetable steamer, colanders, and mesh colanders, as well as more colanders. So that goes like that. And the white liner isn't enough that it stands out, but it makes it nice and neat. And whoa, I think it looks really nice. So I'm very pleased with it. Okay, so I just finished. I'm just going to show you one more time the tools that I used. I had my brown craft paper that I used to make a pattern. But I only had to use once because after I used the first pattern and kind of tweaked it, then I just used my cutouts for subsequent patterns. So to make the cutouts, you know, they're symmetrical sides. I used 2 sides per shelf. I just flip the pattern over to make the other side. It's really hard for me to hold them up. Trust me, they work. Well, you guys saw. So I used the shelf liner, the craft paper. I used a pencil to trace the craft paper originally, but then when I moved to tracing onto the shelf liner, I used a Sharpie because the pencil was not going to show up on this material. And to cut it out, I used my Martha Stewart Crafts X-Acto knife, and it didn't cut through all the way, as I mentioned, but it cut through enough to make like a perforated line, so I just tore it off, and it tore out well. And of course, I cut on my Martha Stewart Crafts self-healing mat. I'll link all the products below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think there'll be 1 or 2 more in this series before I move on to a new project. Thanks for watching, you guys. Bye. Here comes Winnie. Here comes Winnie. Come here, baby. Come. Come here. Hi. Come say hello. Say hello. Oh, it's so bright. It's so bright. I'm going to help Mommy clean. I'm not supposed to be in the kitchen. I'm not allowed in the kitchen unless it's dinner time. Oh. Okay.